These are the courses. I've broken them up here sort of with 100, 200, 300 level, okay? These are rough guidelines, okay? Just to give you a certain sense of where these classes fall, okay? In general, we would look for students to start with the Intro to Testing class and the Scripting and Programming Fundamentals class. You could take them simultaneously if you wanted. For many students, it's best to take one, then take the other, okay?
What is Scripting and Programming Fundamentals? What does it cover?
I'll deal with that in a second for you, okay? Okay? Intro to Testing is about methodology. How do we test software? Why do we test software? What are we concerned about? Okay? What's a test case? What's a bug? What's a well-written bug? What are some of the quality characteristics we need to look for? Okay? There's a tremendous amount of tester vocabulary that goes into this initial class. Because if you can't pick up the vocabulary, you can't move further. The vocabulary is a key part of the foundation. Okay? The Scripting and Programming Fundamentals class is your introduction to starting to get some programming experience. We generally use VBScript as a starting scripting language, but here's a key I want you to understand. This class is not about the scripting language. This class is about scripting. This class is about programming. How do we write code so we can get the computer to do certain tasks for us? Now, this is a core piece of what you need to start understanding to be a good software test engineer. Partly because there are times when you want to make sure that the testing work is done by way of some form of test automation. But aside from that issue, you also need to start understanding programming so that you can effectively understand the kinds of issues you need to test for. I think of it a little bit like building a house and being a building inspector. Would you really want a building inspector that was never a contractor? That doesn't know anything about how a house is built? Would that be a good building inspector? I don't think so. Okay? You've got to have, in order to become an effective software test engineer, you've got to have some sense of how software is built. The best way to get that sense, start building some software. The easiest way to start doing that, start writing some programs. Simple programs using a basic scripting language. You seem so scared. I'm sorry that you seem so scared by that, okay? Beyond these two fundamental classes, we start building, we go into depth in database testing concepts, software testing practice. We also then introduce C#. Okay? Our program, our overall class certificate program is based at its core on using C# as our language of choice. Okay? C#, very popular here in this Redmond area. Very, very often one of the core requests on job postings. Software test engineers should have some sense of C#. And of course, if you're learning C#, those of you know it, some of you may not, but if you're learning C#, by definition, you're also learning about the .NET framework. Okay? The two come hand in hand. Okay? Once you've got these skills, then we move into test automation, test project planning, and then ultimately a capstone project. If I count right, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 classes. Capstone being the 8th. And I've kind of put them in a pyramid that looks like this. And the way I sort of break it up myself personally, the way I think about it is methodology classes, technology classes. Methodology. How do we test? Why do we test? What's the best way to test in this situation or that? Okay? Technology, very specific. Learn C#, learn scripting, learn programming fundamentals, those kinds of things. Does that make sense? Okay. As I said earlier, there are no restrictions at all on being able to take these classes individually. All you need to do is make sure that you've got the prerequisites. Okay? So if you've taken Intro to Testing and Scripting and Programming Fundamentals, then you are ready for any of those next levels of classes. But you don't have to sign up in advance for everything. You can take these one course at a time. Okay. Make sense? Yes?
Question. So if we have some programming background, so can we pass those prerequisites to take?
If you have some programming background, then in general we do have a mechanism for being able to potentially waive a class. Okay? If you waive a class, you're generally going to substitute another class in. Okay, so you don't get to complete the program with less than 8 courses. But if you've already got this knowledge set, you could potentially look to waive the class. And the mechanism we have is that you basically petition, you basically ask. You say, hey, I believe I already have met the prerequisites of or the requirements of this class. I believe I can demonstrate that skill. I would like to substitute this class for another. And that's how that's done.
Yeah. And so if we don't want to get the certificate, so can we just select 1 or 2 of those courses?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then it doesn't require the prerequisite. We don't have to take the course. Say, if I don't take scripting and programming foundation fundamental, then I just want to take a C# for testers and the test automation. So I don't.
As long as you can demonstrate you have this prerequisite skill set, then you can take this, and all you need to do is make sure that everyone agrees you've already got this. Then you would substitute another class into here.
I still need to meet the requirement before I can take the.
Yeah, absolutely. You still need to meet the requirement. That's the core thing. And and let me tell you, it's kind of surprising to me, if you'll allow me to give you an illustration that comes from other discussions I've had with students. I've had many students who ask if they could waive the Intro to Testing Club course. I know that's not your exact question, but I'm using that as an example. I've had many folks who've said, well, I once upon a time, worked for 3 months as a test engineer. I'd like to waive the Intro to Testing course. And in general, I would say that's a very poor idea, and it's relatively difficult to waive this class. The reason being, if you don't have a solid foundation in the vocabulary and the core concepts of this, okay, then it makes it very difficult to advance. So there's no guarantee, that work experience per se has really built that strong foundation. That's why you need to let us know what your background is, and then we sort of review your background to see whether or not it's easy to substitute. Okay? Yes, sir.
Can I read the book and get out of it what I would if I came here? That intro to this, because I have a conflict in another class. And I'm not working towards a certification either.
Right.
So it's just basically
I don't know. We should take that offline. We should take that offline between us as a kind of a special situation. Okay? In general, that's not what we would do. In general. But, well, let's take that offline and we'll deal with it one-to-one. Okay? So as I said, it's often the case, at least the way I think about our program, to break it down related to methodology and technologies, okay? I don't think that's different from how our discipline works. Out there in the job world, I think software test engineers all day long are required to continue to build up their skill set for how to test things, but also simultaneously they need to build up their skill set technically. Okay? So I think this maps pretty well.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a book for each course?
Yes, we. Matter of fact, we're at the textbooks right now. Perfect timing. We're linked in. It's perfect. These are the core textbooks that we use. I brought a couple of them with me here tonight. Okay. We have as a faculty, we've tried to select the most popular, best of breed textbooks, so that anything that you're being asked to buy and to use as a textbook is going to serve you for your career as a resource, as a reference. Okay? We've tried very hard to make sure that the textbooks we're selecting are the right ones. The core textbook for software test engineering starts with this textbook here. This happens to be my version, which is a few years old, okay? But this book has been the standard reference now for quite a long time. That's right. As a matter of fact, there was a time, I don't know if they still do it, but there was a time that if you started at Microsoft in a test capacity, your first day of work, this book would be sitting on your chair. And for any of you that are lucky enough or find yourself at any time going down the hallways of Microsoft, you'll find that most test engineers still have this book somewhere handy as a desk reference. Okay? The core of this book is about vocabulary, and the vocabulary of our business hasn't changed. Black box testing, test cases, bugs, what's a well-written bug. Those types of concepts haven't changed.
How about agile?
We don't spend a significant amount of time speaking about Agile in isolation,
Testing.
but we definitely do introduce the world of Agile software development and tie that in with the world of new or challenging test requirements for testing on Agile teams. So we definitely tie them together. Okay? So this is a listing. I do have an Amazon search out there under the Amazon List Mania stuff. Okay, I've got links to it if you want the links. They're already out on your S drive for your class. But I've got links here if you want to know. And frankly, how you get these books is purely your choice. Okay, the bookstore always has the books, and at the same time, if you decide that somebody's got it and can loan it to you, that's great. You want to buy it used on Amazon, that's great. Okay, so we're not here to specifically sell you books, but we do want to make sure that you've got a good foundation. Did that cover you for textbooks?
Each course have its own textbook, or each course have its own textbook?
Each course?
Yeah, have its own.
It's not exactly one-to-one. There are a few courses where we use the same textbook for like 2 courses at a time. Okay, so if there's 8 courses, I think there's only 6 textbooks you need to get for the 8 courses. Okay.